Previously on our vlog about our first trip to the USA.
It was basically a group called, was it?
BPA Awards or something, yeah, winners or something.
Something about New York, and there was a picture of Times Square. Make sure that's not Sudada last in the picture.
I remember asking the teacher, where's the toilet? She was like, what?
You're talking about like this already.
In the restroom? She said.
I just said the name of the state. I didn't even know. I was like, New Jersey, how many days? 10. Have a nice trip. I was like, okay, so
Back.
yeah, so the next thing we're talking about,
A lot of food.
this is something that maybe happens, I think it happens in some areas in Brazil, so to some people this is not going to be like very big news. But this is something they actually, like the people we've met on the way, they explained to us, they told us like when you order a dish, like let's suppose we were in a group of how many people, 12 perhaps, or even more?
10 people I guess.
10, yeah, 10 people.
10 people,
yeah.
right?
So they said normally you will see the menu and it will say like, ah, so this dish serves 2 people, but it's actually like, you know, for 4 people.
4 people, definitely.
So especially like considering the time of the year and the year that we traveled there, everything was like Wizard and Pearson, they all took care of everything. So we didn't travel by ourselves. If you guys are planning to travel by yourselves or with your family, with your own money, and you're saving money for that, this is something to take in consideration. Maybe like the dollar exchange is not the best. So if you do go there at a moment where like real is very cheap, you have to be careful about this, right? So saving money on food is very, very important because you can use that money for something else. And like if you spend a lot of money on some dishes and when they arrive you see like that's enough to feed an army, you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, I just spent so much money on this.
I could have bought half of it.
Yeah,
definitely.
exactly. So that's, we didn't believe them at first because there are normally places in Brazil where they say that, no, this is enough for 4 people, but it's actually like 3, depends on the situation. But they do have like very big dishes normally, right?
Yeah, portions are enormous.
Yeah, enormous. Yeah, you don't have to worry. Yeah, you don't have to worry about like if you're in a group of up to 4 people, I would say 2, 3, or 4 people, you can order a dish that says it's for 2 people.
And you know, talking about food, what I found really interesting is that like we walked a lot. I remember like the Saturday before we came back to Brazil, I came back to Brazil and then you stayed there. We walked 20 kilometers during the day.
Yeah, you were checking your phone, right?
Yes, and I didn't see any supermarket on the way.
That's true.
Do you remember having seen any supermarket?
You just see a lot of food places, a lot of restaurants.
A lot of food places, but no supermarket at all.
Yeah, and that's a funny thing, like in New York.
Where do they buy, like, don't they go to the supermarket and buy like rice and stuff? Like, don't they cook at home? I think they don't cook.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe that's why they have this habit of like, this is something when I talk to them, like when my American friends ask me, so what are you having for dinner? And I go, oh, rice and beans, and I describe what we have there on the table.
Real food.
Right? And they say, no, I'm having Denny's or I'm having Burger King. I'm like, they normally, they normally just go to the drive-thru or anything and they order like, you know, like a combo or something like that. And they don't have this habit of cooking, most of them, right? And then again, it's important to remember we were talking about New York and what we saw there,
That's
right?
Capital, big place, right? I mean,
yeah, Albany is the capital of New York. The more you know, the better.
Exactly, that's right. No capital.
We're English teachers, not geography.
Right?
Yeah, it is, and they have a lot of
Such a
people.
big city. Gosh, like I felt like, where's the supermarket? What if I wanted to buy some rice?
What if I do? Right? It's like, oh, but you don't need to cook, but I want to. Right? And this is something that they mentioned. I was like, that's another shocking thing. Maybe now we hate to break it down to you guys, but Manhattan, New York, is not actually the most populous. Is that the word I'm looking for? I think.
I think so.
Yeah, it's not the most populous city in America. The most populous city in America is São Paulo. Right? So São Paulo is the first, the second is Mexico City, and then New York.
Can't believe it.
Yeah, so we have more people living in São Paulo than in New York. And
oh gosh, I felt like there were so many people. Like we were walking on the street and there were people everywhere.
Everywhere, yeah. Even if it was like 11 p.m. right? You can see people like
if you wanted to walk a block, you would have to bear in mind that you would need some extra minutes. Like if you thought that you were going to be walking this block in a minute, it takes 10.
And there are a lot of people, right? Especially around like Times Square and places like that are considered touristic spots. You see a lot of people, like more people than you normally plan to see. And but that's the thing. Like you don't normally see supermarkets. And what else?
Gas station.
Yeah, this is something they told us about. Like the guide told us, you don't see. This is completely the opposite of what we think. Like we think you're gonna see like a lot of cars. But people avoid driving in New York. That's what the guide said. Like, first of all, this is something very important that she mentioned, is that the tickets for speeding for anything, they're super expensive. And if you forget to pay them like one day, the interest rate is like huge.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, you pay almost double that price in a week.
And she also told us something about the buildings. Buildings are not built for cars, like there are no parking lots.
Yeah, they're not supposed, like they normally don't have garages in them. This is something that happens in Rio as well. My dad is from Rio and he said that, But in New York, it's not only because like they were not, like the houses and the buildings were not meant for that, but it's even like inconvenient to have a car. Like
it is.
A track that you can do like by subway, you can do in like 5 minutes, that would take you 20-30 minutes by car, because there's a lot of, at the same time, like that a lot of people try not to drive, there are a lot of people driving. So it's like it's very slow, the traffic moves very slowly. If you walk, that's probably the best option in some cases. And it doesn't feel tiring, right? That's the best thing.
We walked so much.
Yeah, you're just walking around. I thought I was gonna get lost.
There's so much to see, right?
Yeah, we did get lost once, right?
Yeah, just
let's not talk about that. Yeah, we're here to help you guys find your way through the U.S.
Exactly.
We don't need to mention how many times we got lost.
Definitely not. Okay. Let's just keep it.
Yeah, let's keep it. And there's another thing. Now I remember. Before we talked about the toilet, another like let's say if the topic of this video is going to be like shocking differences and everything. The first one that came to my mind right as we were landing, and I remember I sent my mother a message of like, because we lived in Brasilia for 2 years, I think. I don't remember because I was very young, but I remember my parents would always talk about this, and I had the same feeling about New York. I have never seen such a flat city my entire life.
It is very flat.
You don't see hills.
Yeah, I haven't thought about it, but it's definitely very.
Yeah, it felt like everything was the same. Yeah, like it was all on the same plan, let's say.
And we walked everywhere there, and it was just flat.
Like you didn't have to worry about like going uphill or downhill or any of that. This is something that the guy mentioned, that it didn't used to be like that. Like Manhattan means in the language of the native people there, it means like an island of many hills, she said, right? So there was a time as they were trying to replan the city where they just flattened everything. And it's funny because they did the same in an island in Rio. It's Ilha do Governador, I think. They did. Is it? Yeah, do you remember? That was my dad's research on his college. I only know that because of that. So, but the rest of the city, like outside of Manhattan, everything is very flat. And it's funny because, like, to me, like, as I said, like, we were on the airplane. It was a 10-hour flight, and on the way, it's like, we're not going to New York. I don't think we're going to New York. It's not happening. We're not actually going to the U.S. But when the plane started going down, like, to land, when I saw that the city was very flat, there was something else that made me realize we are in the US. You see all of those big green areas that are sports fields. It was like, oh, soccer fields, but they were all baseball or like football fields. I could only see one. I think I counted like 15 fields, and all of them were either baseball or football. I could find one soccer.
I remember that now.
Field. Yeah. So when you look at that, because normally, like when you were landing in Rio or São Paulo, like soccer field, soccer. Yeah. And you're like, wait, but where are the goals and everything? You just see like
goals? No, okay.
Yeah, you just see like a tiny circle of sand, and it's like, oh, that's baseball. It actually exists, you know? Because we don't see that here in Brazil. So it was. I think that's the moment when you realize, yeah, I'm not in my country anymore. And so that's it. The city was very flat. And another thing we talked about that we are still not sure if it's about the culture, about how well educated people are, and let's say environmentally aware, or if there's like a lot of people working to take the trash out all the time, but you don't see as much trash as we see in Rio or São Paulo on the streets. I mean, that's my impression at least. I'm not talking only about the big cities, but in Brazil we still have a lot of people who simply don't care about the trash.
Just litter everywhere.
Yeah,
right? It feels like people don't litter there that much. They have been educated not to.
Yeah, exactly.
Been taught not to, and that's beautiful. Isn't
it is. And
no litter.
yeah, and that's another thing. Maybe like because like you could find trash cans basically every corner. So maybe that's something that in Brazil we have more trash cans. Maybe who knows? People would do it, you know. But you can also carry your trash like in your bubble wrap in your pocket. Yeah, it's not an excuse. And so that's the thing. Like we thought the city was gonna be very crowded, like with a lot of cars, but it wasn't.
It wasn't.
We thought it was going to be very dirty with a lot of trash on the streets. It wasn't. Yeah. And another thing, this is something funny because after that, I talked to my American friends about all my impressions. I felt like people, especially the drivers, they were so patient. Like so patient and respectful. Like you would see people, and it's funny because we were part of those flocks of tourists sometimes. Like in FOS, I hate when I see that when I'm driving. And you see a tourist like
taking pictures in the middle of the street.
Yeah, they're like, so I was like, do you see that our cars waiting for you to move so they can go? And I normally get so mad here, but then when we were there, I realized, oh my gosh, I'm
taking pictures everywhere.
Yeah, I was like, I'm that kind of tourist. But you don't hear people honking or anything like we do in Brazil. Like they're always sounding the horn, you know, like they're always honking because they want you to move. It doesn't have to be a big city, but people in Brazil are so impatient with pedestrians. And there, we would see like, when I was like, oh my gosh, I'm being inconvenienced.
But maybe like we were saying, like people in Brazil, maybe it is like people in FOS, it was...
Yeah, that's true. That's also something true.
Maybe, right?
Yeah.
Maybe we are a little impatient.
I am. That's the thing, I'm a very impatient driver and I am a very inconvenient pedestrian. Like I'm the one causing trouble on both ends. Yes? So that's something funny, like, because of course this is not like it doesn't work like that for everybody. Not everybody in Brazil is disrespectful in traffic, but this is something that we see people like. It makes sense, right? Like your car is the first in line. If you don't honk, so the pedestrian will walk faster. People behind you will, so they will honk at you like, why are you not moving? Because there's a person. And there were moments when I was like, oh my gosh, I'm walking slowly, I'm taking too many pictures, let me check if there's a car coming. When I looked behind me, there were like 500 people, and like a lot of cars, and the drivers were just like this.
Waiting for us to move.
And they didn't honk, they were just watching, like this is normal, this happens every day. So to me, they were extremely patient. Don't you feel like
so many people on the street, everybody taking pictures all the time, stopping everywhere, being inconvenient, and no honking.
No, you can normally, like, you could barely notice there were cars on the street.
Broadway. Avenida Broadway, não é o teatro de Broadway. Coisas do caminho. É doido porque eu tô andando com 2 celulares na mão, comendo uma maçã. Todo mundo cuidando da própria vida. É isso aí. Olha o movimento. Uma coisa bem curiosa aqui, que o povo é muito... Às vezes eles se estressam um pouquinho, e com razão, porque estão ali parados um tempão esperando os pedestres atravessar, e aí buzina, mas a maioria dos motoristas sossegado, deixa o povo passar. O semáforo tá aberto pra eles, mas a maioria das vezes olha lá o ônibus. Parado, deixa o povo passar. Ups. Tá fechado pra gente, mas tá todo mundo atravessando. É reto toda a vida. Estamos chegando perto do Broadway agora. Broadway teatro, no caso, que a gente tá indo ver uma peça. Olha isso. Olha essa cidade maravilhosa. Applebee's. Ali tem o Beetlejuice, o espetáculo do Beetlejuice, não sei qual é o local. Falta uma quadra. Nossa, tudo pintura. Grafite, pelo visto. Falta uma quadra pra gente chegar na Broadway. Vamos vazar.
Motorcycles, that's something else, right?
Ah, that's something nice to tell you guys.
Didn't see motorcycles at all.
But she did tell us why. remember the guy telling us why there were no motorcycles on the street? She said that motorcycles are first, there's no insurance. So if you want to have a motorcycle, there's no insurance, especially for the winter. So if you use the motorcycles in the winter, there's no insurance. And so they are only used in the summer, and there are only those very huge motorcycles, you know. So like in Brazil, for example, we have this the cheaper ones, which are used sometimes to go to work, or sometimes, you know, people use it for delivery stuff. They are definitely not used in the same manner in the US.
Sure.
They use the bikes, right?
Yeah, you see a lot of people riding their bikes, the Uber Eats guys and stuff.
iFood and stuff. Bike.
That's it. And then the cars.
No motorcycles.
Yeah, you don't hear motorcycles speeding. This is something that we have to be careful about every time we're crossing the streets here.
You know what feels nice about it? Like in Brazil, usually like poor people have motorcycles, or like people who, because it is cheaper to have a motorcycle, isn't it?
Much more than a car.
Less fuel and the insurance, I think maybe there's no insurance or something, yes. But in the US it is the other way around. It's very expensive to have one, so rich people have them. Insurance is really expensive. You are going to have them only like for leisure.
Yeah, and those people are like collectors, right?
Ride on the weekend or something.
This is true. That's something funny that you mentioned. Like they have a lot of snow, almost the whole country, so people may slip all the time and fall. Right?
That's right.
It's not feasible for insurance companies to like cover all of that. That's true. And in Brazil, they're everywhere. Like. Yeah, I think there are more motorcycles than cars in Brazil. And it's funny because like when we were on the highway, like getting into the city, I recorded a video and I was joking to my mom, like you could totally put a lo-fi song on the background, you know, like a very calm or surf music, because the traffic moved so smoothly. Like you didn't have any motorcycles crossing around like zigzagging like they do in Brazil. I was like, what's happening? So we can't almost, we couldn't tell that we were actually on the highway because it was very quiet.
It was.
Yeah.
And still, I don't think I would be able to drive there. Too many lanes.
Yeah, that's true. And then like you were like, well, what if I go now and there's
too
like
many lanes, what if I take the wrong one?
Yeah, if you take the wrong exit, right? And then you're like, what if I end up in Utah or Colorado or something like that? That's true. So that's basically like traffic, trash. We didn't see much trash on the street. I don't.
You know, the condition of the roads, I think it caught my attention. Like, still, even though they are a lot better than Brazilian roads, still like we could see a few holes.
That's true.
Here. I felt like, oh, am I in Brazil?
I feel home. It's funny because our guide said that, right? We took an exit to go like, and she said,
I remember that.
Yeah, there were so many potholes on the street. She just said, "Don't worry, guys. I asked them to dig these holes so you guys would feel home, you know, so you feel like you're in Brazil, because the highway itself was very smooth, and it's funny. Like this is something that I like about it. The asphalt is like light gray, right? Ours is very dark, like very black, and theirs it feels like so light. I don't know. It looks very, very bright. But that's it. So like there were some holes, but only now and then, right?
Yeah.
On the highways, maybe they were better preserved. But
And she also mentioned that the asphalt is redone or whatever, like every year before winter comes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and there was a mayor that was not very careful about that. He accidentally did it on the wrong time.
Yeah.
And people couldn't drive, right? Because he totally messed it up. But that's it. And then one more thing. I think this is something that is kind of tricky to talk about, because we can all say like, and American people watching this may feel like, oh my gosh, Brazil is terrible. But crime, like when you're talking about crime, even in small cities, like I don't feel comfortable walking around the city with my phone on my hand at like any time past 7 p.m. I would say. Like even if it's like 1, 2 p.m., I'm still not 100% confident. And there were times when I was walking by myself at like 10, 11 p.m. and then I just saw people like own business and using the phones, like I need to check Google Maps, so I will do it. And when I noticed, like I had walked almost the entire city with my phone on my hand, and nobody looked at me, like nobody even looked at me like, what are you doing? Put your phone away, hide it, you know? So we don't see, like...
Of course, like we only spent a week there, so there might be violence, there might be, you know...
Yeah, there for sure is.
We just felt safe. For some reason, we felt it was okay to walk with our cell phones on our hands, and we felt okay about it, right?
Well, I wouldn't say that's true. We wouldn't say like it's 100% perfect. Do it. You will never be mugged.
Yeah, definitely not.
Yeah.
But like we were lucky maybe.
Yeah, and the chance, I would say the chances are like much smaller than in Brazil, like in some cases, because like the first time I was mugged in my life, I was waiting outside of college, like I was right on the gate to college. So normally it's a space where you feel like you will be safe.
Yeah.
Of course, I was not being very careful, but like comparing that to like we were a place, we were very close to a place where you feel safe, and then on the other end of the continent, I was in a city that I had never visited, and I was just walking with my phone in my hand and nothing happened. So like it kind of triggers you, you know, like wow, so at home I have to be very careful about this, and here I can kind of be sloppy sometimes. Of course you should, but this is something like another thing. I saw a meme later on that week and I sent it to you. Do you remember? We were always watching our backpacks. We're like, where are they? And then we were like studying people as they approached us, like, are they gonna get my stuff? I was like,
Passport.
yeah, and we were always hugging our backpacks, like very close to us. And when we looked at people, sometimes they were on their phones with their backpacks, like on the other end of the bench. And then I saw that meme. It was like, dear tourist, stop hugging your backpack so close. We're not interested in stealing your I love New York shirts. I was like, just because we had 12 of them in our bags doesn't mean
ridiculous.
So that's basically
How did you guess? 12? No,
12.
13 actually.
And it's funny, right? Because this is something people from the city notice. Like they see a lot of people from other countries coming to their city and being extremely careful with their backpacks. And they're like, chill, we're not gonna steal anything. Of course, now and then somebody may do it, but it's not like you don't have to be paranoid about it, right? And this is something that I think now next time, next time we go there, we have to be careful about, because it may look to them, it may feel a little bit disrespectful. Like, do you think everybody here is a criminal? You know, so it's just a natural tendency that we have.
We're not interested.
Yeah, exactly.
Your shirts.
Yeah, so like here in Brazil, kind of like being paranoid about things.
You know, again, guys, like we're talking about Foz do Iguaçu. I mean, to my mind, right? We're talking also about Iguaçu, and it might be a little bit, just a little bit more violent than other places. So yes,
yeah,
right.
it's not a universal opinion.
Yeah,
we're just telling you guys our impressions when we went there.
That's right.
Yeah, so that's like we're talking about crime, about violence, about how flat the city was, about the toilets, about food. Is there anything else tipping, right? I would guess it's included.
Yes, do tip.